Hi everybody, it's Ann with Art on the Creek. I have something fun for us on this New Year's Eve Saturday. Today I thought we would review something that I've been dying to get my hands on. They've been sitting on my shelf for far too long. I have the Caran Neocolor II water-soluble wax pastels. They're like coloring with crayons, but then you can apply water to them and get some beautiful blends. Are you ready to try these out? Let's do it. The first and foremost thing I want to mention as I'm swatching these out for you is not only that the colors are absolutely vibrant and beautiful, but that Caran is not paying me to do this review. I'm not affiliated with anyone. This is just a product that I've purchased with my own money, and it's been sitting on my shelf for too long, so I thought we could explore it today. Here is a slowed down view of the thing that frustrates me so much about any kind of a pigment stick. When you have cold pressed watercolor paper and you color with it and then it's water soluble, you use your wet paintbrush to pull it out and spread that pigment around, it's very difficult to get rid of those initial pigment lines that you've deposited. Now, as we go through here, though, what I want to really talk about is how clear and vibrant these colors are. I do have the full set of 84, and that's kind of an investment. So if you're not looking to get into that much of a price point right now, they do come in other sizes and, at different price points as well. So as we continue to swatch out the color ranges here, you can see how the colors are very sheer, just like regular watercolors. Now, if you were to go in and add on an additional layer, which you do have to dry in between layers, but if you were to go on and add that additional layer, you can increase the opacity just like gouache. You're going to want to get these Stabilo All pencils, A-L-L. I have a black and a white, and I think we're going to use them today. The reason they're called all pencils is because they are supposedly able to color on anything. They're water soluble, write on anything, excuse me. Paper, glass, plastic, metal. Now, what kind of brush to use? For me, I like using something with tack-on bristles. I'm going to use this CANSON paper for what we're doing today. This is a sanded paper. It's really good for pastels. I decided that the best way to think of these is if I think of them like pastels, and then they would make more sense. This is really affordable paper, and if you want to just play with something, this is a great way to do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of tape this off a little bit. All right, the photo we're going to be using today is from Pixabay, and it was just this really great close-up picture of these orange sections. So let's try this. Let's see if we've got our horizon line is about here. I'm going in with the drawing with that Stabilo All pencil, and I'm just using white because I didn't want to have any shading from the black one to come through. So just roughly sketching in those two orange sections. If you're not comfortable with drawing, you can think of kidney beans or just little kind of lima beans. They're just kind of little curved crescents with soft edges. Pretty simple little drawing. And you'll see I don't put that much detail in at all. This is just really just kind of a guide for placement of these, because the great thing about these Neocolors is that you can draw and paint at the same time, and that's what we're going to do. So right at first, the color I want to use is this Sahara Yellow. And I'm just going to go in and color. Now, I'm not pressing very hard, so you can see the pigment laydown is really nice. And I'm just coloring. Right there where those light sections would be, and then up here. And let's see, let's put a little bit of this in here. And over here, and then some back here. And now when I'm using these, and I've got a big old tray of colors, I like to lean it out so that I know I've used that color. Like so. Get that back out of the way. And now I'm just going to go down to the next color, which is orangish yellow. And we'll add a little of that in there. Now, despite my having taken 7 years of French in school, I am Americanizing this pronunciation, so forgive me. Caran is a company that is based in Switzerland. They produce some of the finest artist materials around, And if you do purchase these, you'll have no qualms with quality. The Neocolor IIs are different from the Neocolor I in that the IIs are their aquarelle. They're blended with water. So you can also blend them traditionally, as you'll see as we proceed further in this drawing here, but they will blend with water, which makes them so fun and so versatile. You can see as I'm coloring here with this, the texture of that sanded paper is really coming through, which makes such a good source for using any kind of pastel on, because it really lends to developing some painterly strokes, which I personally really love in pastel. And for some reason, it blends better on here than it does on the cold press watercolor paper. I don't know why, it just does. I'm starting out with that Jack Richeson brush, and it is a golden Taklon. I think that these brushes are so nice to blend the Neocolor IIs with, because they don't hold a lot of water. And especially when you're working on mixed media paper, you don't want a lot of water put down, because it is going to just end up warping your paper. But really, you can see as it gets wet there, you can see the vast amount of texture in this paper. It really is lovely to work with. You want to move your brush in the direction of the orange segments, kind of in that starburst manner, with the center of the crescent there and everything radiating out from that. And then on the ends, I'm just kind of using a side-to-side sweeping motion to smooth that out a little. The other thing about these is that they're so forgiving. You'll see as we get further in the drawing, I lose some edges sometimes, and then you can just go right back in and put them in, because once you have a dry layer, you can go back in and color on top and add more pigment. I was able to put down several layers of pigment on this piece, and I had no issues whatsoever. Let's talk about light fastness for a moment. As I mentioned before, Caran d'Ache is one of the most respected artist brands that there are, and they are a global brand. So you should expect these products to be light fast, and most of them really come with quite a good rating. Now, they use the standard blue wool scale, and what that means is that certain colors will remain unaltered for up to 100 years. So putting that in layman's terms, it's basically it's a benchmark that if this is under museum conditions with proper lighting and proper care and the correct glass, the colors will still remain vibrant after 100 years or in 100 years. And then, of course, it's a sliding scale, so how close to that 100-year benchmark you get, based on the 1, 2, or 3 stars. Basically, what you're finding with this Caran d'Ache set is that the colors are largely compliant with that blue wool scale, and that you won't have any trouble at all, especially if you're using a sketchbook. Then light fastness might not even be a worry for you, but I kind of like to think that maybe someday I could frame something that I've done, and so I do like that light fastness information, which is why I wanted to share it with you today. It's safe to know that you're investing in a very high quality product. The majority of these in the set have a 3-star rating, which is the highest rating on the blue wool scale. Some of them do have a 1-star rating, and typically those are the colors that will fade. Your purples and your reds. Some of the blues do have also the 1-star rating, and some have a 2-star, but the majority of them do have 3 stars. And for the most part, for what you're going to be doing with your artwork, it will be fine to go ahead and use these on a commission piece if you wanted to, and to sell it to someone, or you can gift it to someone. I would just, when you do, I would write down some care instructions. When you're framing your art, I always like to have it framed, or to frame it yourself, using museum quality glass and not hanging anything in direct sunlight, because it will dull the vibrancy of your painting eventually. And another great thing about this product is Caran d'Ache is a very reputable company. They care about customer service, and they're wonderful to work with. On their website, they do have a color chart for all of the colors. You can buy these individually as well, by the way. And when I purchased mine, it came with an insert of a color chart that you can make your own. It's a bunch of hexagons, which is kind of fun to do it that way. I just did mine in my swatch book, though, because that's what I'm accustomed to doing, and that's what I shared with you at the beginning of the video. So drawing-wise, I'm just going in and increasing the darkness of the crayons as I go on. I've started with the lightest color, and then I'm going in and adding the shadows as I go. For me, that kind of helps establish a translucency. I didn't want to start with dark and then add light, because I wanted to work in a sense of shadows. To me, the orange sections are light to begin with, because light does go through them. And so I wanted to start with that light and then work my way and add those shadows in as adding the darks later. The fun thing about working on a toned paper like this and with the gray, the medium tone, since you're working with a translucent medium, it does really help to have that medium tone already established. And you may not think of it right at first, but it really does help to enable you to establish how dark you want your darks to go and how light your lights need to be. Let's talk about price point, shall we? I happen to have Jerry's Artorama website open right now. And again, I'm not affiliated with them. It's just the one that I happened to land on from a search. And their Caran Neocolor II crayons, they say that they are up to 18% off list price, starting at $2.19 US. And you can buy them individually. The great thing about these is that they're mixable. So if you did want to just start with primaries, like a red, yellow, blue, and then maybe a black and a white, you could certainly do that. Get in to this product with very little investment and see if you enjoy it. Now, if you are more interested in thinking, yeah, this is something I'd kind of like to do, you can start by purchasing a tin set. And like I mentioned, I have the set of 84. Now, that is the full color range. You certainly don't have to get in at that level. I can't tell you what I paid for mine because I simply don't remember, and I don't remember where I got them from either. But on Jerry's Artorama, in fact, right now they're on sale for $125.83, and the list price is $250 according to their website. That's a really good price if you wanted to look around online and check these out. The day that I'm filming this is Tuesday, December 27th, so by the time that you're watching this on Saturday, hopefully those prices will still be valid, but right now when I'm looking at this, that's a good benchmark for you for a sale price. So you can get the full set of 84 on sale for $125.83. The set of 40 is the next size down for $57.79. And a set of 30 for $46.95, a set of 15 at $26.97, and the set of 10 for $19.35. So you'll have to check this out online, look at your different availability, and see what is the best way for you to get into this if this is something that you decide you want to do. You'll notice as I'm coloring this, I am drying it between each layer. That is crucial. When you're coloring with these, you want to make sure that you are not putting pigment on a wet surface. You probably could, but I found that to increase the frustration probably a millionfold. It could be me. It could be just the way that I am used to working with this art medium, pastel type medium. I just got so frustrated. So just make sure that your paper is dry before you deposit the color, before you put that pigment down, and then you of course go in with a wet paintbrush to just blend it. You could also use a water brush on these, but I have found in general that water brushes, it's a little bit harder to control the flow of water, which is again why I like using the Taklon bristles on these, the man-made filament, because you're putting very little water down. And I really like that, being able to control. Now, you see in the drawing here, that little pile of shavings that I have. I did use my X-Acto knife to sharpen the Sahara yellow there. And I left the shavings there because I want to save them. And typically what I would do is to shave that off in a separate empty palette and save them and use them from there. However, today I wanted to try something different, and I'll tell you right now, I don't recommend it. When you do sharpen these, save the shavings in a little empty palette and just kind of start a palette of these with the shavings in them, because you can certainly use it like a solid pan of watercolor. Don't do what I did in this drawing. It's not worth it. I was trying something new and it just didn't work. But this is just an experimentation piece. So that's exactly what this is for. Now, overall, just kind of looking at how we draw with this medium, this is why I love it so much, because you've got your layers of color down, and again, drawing between each layer, and now you can put in your highlights, and you'll see I've gone with the smaller brush here. I think I'm using the number 6 round. It's got a really nice point on it, and I'm pulling that white in over some of these orange and vermilion tints. And what I'm able to do is to just really soften that white and kind of take away the starkness level to it, but to keep it a highlight. And this is the beauty of layering these. It's a wonderful pastel to work with, but it's also transparent, and it really gets that ability for you to manipulate the values and change the lighting in your painting very, very quickly, very easily. So as I'm doing this, I'm having just a blast. I'm really loving how this works. I'm enjoying getting in here. The other thing that I really like about these is, in comparison to watercolor, I will fool around a lot less with these than I will with watercolor. I fiddle and I fiddle and I fiddle, and I tend to try and get things looking just so. But here I'm able to keep those broad painterly strokes, and they felt very freeing to me. And I hope that if you try them, that you'll have kind of the same feeling when you use them, that you don't have to focus on detail as much. Now you absolutely could. But for me, this was just very freeing, very wonderful way to just be expressive in my art. Now I'm using them just more as a typical pastel drawing here, but you can really be flexible with these. They're perfect for mixed media. They're great for stenciling. You can use them on a wood panel. You can use them on rocks. They don't crumble. That's what's really, really cool about these, is that you're not going to have a lot of that annoying crumbs to brush away. In fact, I didn't have to use my drafting brush at all with these. And if you're feeling really creative, you can also use these with the Neocolor I. Now those are the ones that are water resistant, remember, they are not water soluble. So you can do some really cool resist effects with those. For instance, if you were able to color something first in the Neocolor I and then go over it with the Neocolor II, blend it with water, you're going to get a really neat layered effect. The other great thing about these is that the more pigment that you put down, the more opaque it's going to be. And you can go in layers and layers and layers. And again, I highly recommend drying it in between layers. I really liked using a heat tool because it had kind of an added benefit of softening that wax. This is a wax product, so it softened it there, and then I was able to put it on even more smoothly. So I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit here, and now we're going to deal with this pile of shavings. This is the way that I don't recommend doing it, only because it was a little bit messy and hard to control. But you know what? As far as color dissolution and being able to manipulate it and spread it around, I didn't have any trouble at all. I'm just, instead of taking the time to put those shavings on a palette, which again I would recommend doing, it got, as you see there, a little bit crumbly on my brush, but I was able to spread it around beautifully. It did completely dissolve. I didn't have any remaining crumbs on the paper. I was able to pick all of those up. I really enjoy the flexibility of this product. I'm just getting the horizon line in there, and this is with that Sahara yellow. I'm using it as a first layer, and then I'll go in and dry this, and you can see how we finish this up. Now for the top portion, I'm going in with a russet, just doing a real loose deposit of color there, and then we'll go ahead and add some burnt sienna into the corners, because I like to do somewhat of a vignette effect whenever I'm doing any kind of still life. It helps to bring that light more toward the core of your painting, toward your subject. Now you'll see here, if you watch closely, where the water is blending, I was able to go in really easily. Here's where I've got a close-up of it, and loosen that pigment concentration and get it completely blended. I was so thrilled that I wasn't going to have pigment lines on my painting here in the background. So that's a huge plus. And then to make that horizon line a little bit blurred, what I did was I continued to blend and blend and blend so I didn't have a hard line there. And you can see that process here. Now I have gone in with a heat tool and dried off that the russet and burnt sienna layer that I did. And now I'm creating kind of an ombre effect on that horizon line with that Sahara yellow and using my finger to blend. Now I will use my finger for most of the remaining of this drawing as my blending tool instead of the water. It lended towards such a really neat effect. It just made the surface of the painting look like leather. And I think it's because there might be a little bit of a wax bloom when you're blending like this, but it looked so good on this paper that I didn't want to change it. So you can see here how easy it is to blend. I'm going in with another layer of that russet over top and just depositing that color, and I'm not coloring very hard at all. I'm just lightly shading that in and then blending it with my finger, and you'll see how easy it is to create that ombre effect with the horizon line there. And I'll just go in and continue to work on that throughout here. So let's skip forward a little bit and you can see how we finish this off. And towards the end here, I really, again, was able to play around with the versatility of this product, adding some of the shadow underneath the oranges there, just using the burnt sienna. And I'm blending it with my finger. And then what I'll do with the Sahara yellow is I'm going to go in and add some more to the background on the table, but this time I can go in, even though I have layers under there, you can still go in with the wet paintbrush and blend on top of it. So I'm kind of trying to establish some painterly strokes there, and I really am enjoying doing this. And we'll go in again, once again, make sure it's dry, and then you can see how lush and rich that pigment goes down on that warmed paper right after I've used the heat tool on it there. And it just makes it so easy to blend. So that's kind of a cool feature. If you needed to increase your blending ability, you could just run a heat tool over it for a little bit and then blend it with your finger, because this wax is very pliable and easy to use. Now I think I'm going to create a vignette effect on the bottom, and I'm going in with the orange crayon just to kind of create a little highlight there to have that light reflected and brought back in toward the center. And just running that across the bottom and in the corners. And then we'll go ahead and add that onto the top too, just so we can have the oranges reflect back up onto the wall. So burnt sienna is a nice brown to use for this because it does have a red base. It's a nice warm brown, but pulling that orange in all the way around really helps to accentuate the value of those beautiful translucent oranges. Now let's go in and clean up the lines that we have from the oranges. So I'm going to skip ahead on this. Basically, all I'm doing is cleaning up the lines that I painted over and making sure that I've got the detail on the oranges just the way I want it. So I've pretty much finished adding the highlights and shadows with the direct usage of the Neocolor II crayons. And now I've used a wet paintbrush directly on the surface of the crayon to kind of intensify this shadow here. I'm just painting it on in between the oranges. So that's another really cool way that you can use this product. You can just have a wet paintbrush, apply that wet brush directly to the surface of the crayon, and then just paint directly on your piece. And now I am taking the Stabilo All pencil, and I'm just kind of smoothing that out. I want to make sure it's dry first, so I shot it with the heat tool a little bit. And now I'm smoothing out that shadow just to kind of get a little bit of a blend going there. Overall, I really am so pleased that I pulled these out today to test for you guys, because I had a blast. I am so happy with the way this little painting turned out, and I had so much fun doing it. Look how easy the cleanup is. I'm just using a baby wipe, and it just comes off like a dream. And you know, that's another thing. If you have some pastels that have some other pigment on it from doing your layering, you can just wipe those off on the baby wipe too. Here I've used the black Stabilo All pencil to sign it, and you can see hardly any of the wax came up on the pencil. If you were to use a typical colored pencil, you would probably have a little bit more wax lifting from that. And you may not be able to deposit that pigment on top of these. But with that Stabilo All pencil, no problem. And here you can see what I'm talking about, cleaning the Neocolor IIs with that baby wipe. It just works so well. So these are just really easy care, easy use. I love them. I will continue to use them. Let's take the tape off of this and see how it looks. Well, I do love a good crisp border, and I did get a little overzealous with some of my work here, but it doesn't matter. I measured it out to be 6 by 8. So that I'll be able to easily frame it. I'm trying to use a baby wipe here to lift that pigment off, and I probably should have blotted instead of rubbed it, because I think what I did was smear the pigment around just a little bit, but you'll see here at the end I was able to pretty much pick that up. Bottom line, if you don't have these in your arsenal, you might want to consider them. They are a lot of fun. I think one of the things that I like the most about them is that you can really just draw with them. And for those of you that may be a little bit intimidated by drawing, this pastel method is so nice because it's kind of drawing and painting together. So you can definitely manipulate what you're doing. You don't have to worry about getting the lines straight and erasing. You can just blend it and reblend it. And in this case, blend it with water or blend it with your finger for a different kind of effect. It has a slight sheen to it. I don't know if you can pick that up on camera. Those are the parts that I blended with my finger, which is probably kind of like a wax bloom with colored pencil, but I think that kind of adds to it. I like how it gives it a leather look, particularly on this paper. So I'm a fan. I really like the Neocolor IIs. I'll be using more of them, and I hope if you guys were looking for a new art supply to try in 2023, maybe this one is the one you'll choose. Okay? Thanks for joining me for this fun adventure. See you next time.